You're watching NewsX. I'm Udar Pratap Singh. About 40 farmer organizations have taken to the streets across North India and are marching towards Delhi. The farmers are demanding the implementation of the Swaminathan Commission's recommendations and the enactment of a law to guarantee a minimum support price for crops. The farmers are demanding the provision of pensions for farmers and farm laborers as well. Let's take a look at the larger picture, the need to double farmers' income. This is undoubtedly a national priority, something that requires a future-oriented approach. But this is not something that can be done in a jiffy. If we want to double the income of farmers in the long run, what exactly must be done is the big question. Is merely guaranteeing a fixed MSP a concrete solution, or do we need to set up other mechanisms? What can be done to ensure that farmers' produce can be processed and sold at higher rates? Will reducing the number of middlemen also help boost farmers' incomes? And what about technology? Will access to better tech revolutions for the agricultural landscape for farmers be beneficial as well? Well, let's discuss that with a special panel. We have Dr. Jayjeet Bhattacharya, President, Center for Digital Economy Policy Research, joining us live. Sharad Kohli, economist, also joins us on the broadcast. Indrashekhar Singh, agricultural expert, also is live with us. Dr. M.J. Khan, agriculture sector expert, also joins the broadcast. Let me make a start with you first, Jayjeet Bhattacharya, on what practically can be done to increase farmers' income. Is a MSP law pragmatic, possible? What else can be done if not this?
So, MSP is obviously effective under certain circumstances, but it cannot be a law under all circumstances, under all, for all kinds of crops and so on and so forth. We don't have MSP for, let's say, animal husbandry. We don't have MSP for milk and so on and so forth. And these are one of the more profitable agricultural producers. So, obviously the farmers are also under stress, right? And there is no doubt, I think nobody will deny that farmers, not just in India, but globally are under stress. But having said that, will an MSP really solve it? And there are also many other things that you only mentioned, such as use of better technology, use of more efficient farming techniques, supply chain optimizations, and so on and so forth. However, let's just look at it from an India perspective. There are almost 60% of the population in terms of families is dependent on farming. So if you increase let's say the price of food, because that is what's finally going to help the farmers, then 60% of the farmers themselves will get hit by it. And many of them will be small and marginal farmers, and leave alone those who are vulnerable sections of the society who will not get access to food. Now, fortunately, under the government's program of providing free ration and food to those who don't have it or don't have access to it, which is almost 800 million population in this country, at least the vulnerable sections are kind of protected. But from an economic perspective, would it really sustain if we increase the food prices? Because the end consumers will get hit. And if 60% of the population is farmers, they themselves are going to pay for it. Let's look at it from a workforce perspective. 45% of the workforce in this country is involved in farming. Now, with that large workforce, there is no other large country or economy in the world which has got that many farmers involved in farming, or that much of workforce. You look at Brazil, it's less than 10% of the workforce involved in farming. US is around 2% of the workforce involved in farming. So the only way out from my perspective, really, which will fix the problem, is half the number of workforce involved in agriculture. They'll produce the same amount, they will use technology, they will use mechanization, and the farmer income will go up. We haven't created any new, large cities in the last 50, 60 years, except for Naya Raipur and Gift City and so on. But we need far larger cities which will start absorbing new kinds of employment, which will then start, getting people from the rural areas into urban areas and giving them alternate jobs. Unless we reduce the workforce in the farming sector, I think everything else is a break fix. And pretty soon they will start breaking down because it's not sustainable. You cannot have an economy where 60% says that increase the cost of something that they themselves will consume and will also make others consume, and and it lead to significant inflation driven by food, which is the worst thing possible, because an inflation then leads to taxation of the poorest person in the country. Because for that person, it's essentially a taxation, and inflation is something that we are taking away from their pockets, and that's the worst kind of economic harm that we can do. And keeping all the factors in mind and how the various dimensions of the economy plays out. In my personal view, what we should really be looking at is reducing the number of farmers, giving alternate jobs, providing alternate ways of employment so that people move away from farming. Many of these farmers are actually technically underemployed. They do not have enough employment for 12 months a year. Between crops, they don't have much of a work to do, and therefore, I strongly believe that we need to urgently create many more job opportunities. For example, when the government came out with provisions for Kisan in 2021, about 14 million families, 140 million families were targeted. But the number of families which really registered was only 90 million. The balance could never be found. So we don't even know how many farmers are out there. But let's say there are 90 million farmers. So can we get 45 million out of farming and put them into something else? I think that is what's going to solve the problem in the longer run.
Yes, Sharad Kohli, let me quickly bring you in here on your roadmap. How do we, Sharad, go about increasing farmers' income? How do we go about doubling farmers' income?
Thanks, Uday, and good afternoon to the NewsX viewers. I think farmers seem to be understanding only one mathematics. With due respect to their annadatas, so I have all the respects for them. That probably the growth of revenue is the only way you can increase the income. But coming from the world of economics and finance, I mean, for me, that's just one of the windows. There are several other windows. If we take basic arithmetic of any business being run, either there's a revenue side or there's an expenditure side. So I think we are only looking at the revenue side. We are not looking at the expenditure side. So if we are able to reduce the cost of production, it's ultimately about profit, not revenue. I think what the farmers are looking at is they want more profits out. What do they do out of revenue if the cost of production keeps rising and at the end of the day, what they get in hand is the same? So I think reducing the cost of production is one method. When I say reducing the cost of production, I agree with Dr. Jayjeet here that there is disguised unemployment massive in this sector. When 60% of the economy directly or indirectly depends on agriculture, unfortunately, its contribution to the GDP is only probably 16-17%. That's it. So there's a very skewed graph which probably indicates that agriculture per se is not a very profitable venture. So if something which can be done by two people, I'm adding to what Dr. Jayjeet said, I'm just trying to expand on that, is being done by 7 people. Obviously, you feel the pinch because after all, the number of rupees that come home or the overall revenue is the same, which is shared between 7 people. There's a farmer, there is his 5 sons, there is his brother also, so probably, and then his sons as well. And there's the same 2-acre, 3-acre, 5-acre land on which they are surviving. So I think I would like to extend what Dr. Jayjeet said, that when you reduce the cost of production, you should move people away from farm produce. I completely agree. I mean, there are too many people trying to harvest very, very little land. So in economics, we call this as disguised unemployment, this massive disguised unemployment. So reducing cost of production is one, reducing the cost of fertilizers, the seeds, the cost of irrigation. There are other factors of production in agriculture which can thoroughly be looked after, then increasing the productivity. Well, if you go to Punjab, Haryana, I don't question the productivity, but per acre output of the farmland in many cases is not sufficient. So what if you are able to generate, let's say, 20 metric tons out of a certain piece of land, and if you can generate 25 out of the same piece of land, your revenue automatically go up. So I think increasing the productivity is another factor. Then when it comes to crop intensity, because what is happening right now is that they are planting as per the technology and as per the ways and means available in their hands. Well, I must add a very important aspect, that one of the reasons which has contributed to the problem is also because there is no new modern investment coming into farming. When I say modern investment, I mean the startups. The startups, if they start diversifying towards farming, you will suddenly find things changing there. We are not seeing any new startup. How many startups tell me out of the 112,000 which are registered with Startup India? You tell me how many are registered for agriculture. The numbers will be minuscule, So I think there is a need for increasing the crop intensity by bringing in new technology for the farmers, then I think farmers are also looking at just one market, and that market is government purchase, which is what we call as MSP. They want laws that everybody and mostly government should purchase. Well, I think they should be looking at exports. They should be looking at food processing. If I'm growing tomato or potato, I can probably get connected to industry. Here is the point, very important point, Uday, that the farm laws which came in, I think reversal of farm laws somehow although it's a very controversial issue, and we saw in the last agitation, Prime Minister had to come forward and withdraw the farm laws. But if you deep dive into these farm laws, I think there is a need that we relook at these farm laws. That was it a mistake from a farmer's perspective? Government agreed. Government agreed to take them back because of the size and the volume of agitation. But then if you study them, it was giving a fair opportunity for farmers to go and market their land. Middlemen, very important aspect, Uday. You are asking me to maximizing revenue, get the best. Look at the number of middlemen. Farmer cries because his crop sells as 20 rupees a kg. Consumer cries because he buys at 200 rupees a kg. So what's in the middle? Who's taking away this margin? There is a wholesaler, there's a RT, there's a distributor, there's so many there's a wholesaler. There are so many middlemen in between. I think they are taking away the cream of profit. So if we reduce the middlemen, I feel we can achieve MSP much sooner than later. And I think the focus should move away. Let me not call it MSP. I call it the maximum profit. I think instead of calling it, maximum support price or minimum support price, I call it maximum profit. I think the whole nomenclature has to change. Farmers should be looking at profits, not the price. If your cost of production rises in the same proportion, what's the point of getting the price? So I think elimination of middlemen is the solution here.
Yes.
If this is done, I can tell you, you can see magic working as far as farmers' prices are concerned.
All right, let me take that to Indrashekhar Singh. Indrashekhar Singh, it's the farmers' protests round 2. This time, of course, the demands are different. How many of them do you believe are legitimate? How many actually can be implemented by the government? How many do you believe perhaps are not feasible, are not practical, in your opinion? And what else, if not, the protest charter, can the government do to please the farmers, to ensure that these protests, of course, end, and also there is betterment for their community and fraternity going ahead?
Thank you there for having me. I think the critical point coming out of all the messaging that the farmers are sending us is that we want a fair price for our produce. The second thing which they have reiterated many, many times, and I do feel that is a fair demand, that if a daily wage laborer has an hourly rate or a minimum daily wage, why shouldn't the daily wage of the farmer be built into the price of the produce? Now, there were many things said by the earlier speakers about bringing more people out of agriculture, moving them into the cities. Well, the government has been trying to do that exactly the same thing for the past 10 years, and it has failed. When you read out the reports of doubling farmers' income, which is written by Ramesh Chand for the Niti Aayog, verbatim, both the speakers who spoke before me were repeating that report exactly. Now, if the government has failed to do that in the past 10 years, which was the flagship program of the Modi government, there is a serious problem. And it's not a BJP problem, it's a country problem, it's an India problem. That India, after 70 years, cannot find a good system of supply management. I think the one word my previous speaker missed out was that there is a problem of supply management in India. Now, of course, we've seen that when the produce is produced, like, for example, tomatoes, farmers don't even get 2 rupees. While the consumers are paying 400. Price for volatility is directly responsible. It is directly a cause of the lack of supply management in the country. Of course, and I do agree that there are some excesses in the middle. The cream is taken off by agri-processors, the final last leg level people who are retailing the crops and the produce like flour and other things. But I think the larger problem here is that the Indian farmers, the government, and the industry are uncoordinated. Because there is chaos and no government planning of supply management, that's why we have all these hyperfood inflations. We have all these other issues. Now, I'm not only going to talk about the problems, but I'm going to talk about a solution, which is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I have a little graph with me here to show you that this is I think it's coming inverted, but the US, under the New Deal Farm Program under FDR, had a similar problem of overproduction. They were battling with the Great Depression. And what did they do? Well, the government said that we are going to ensure that people get at least they issued price floors, and they ensured that farmers got those prices for 10 years. And believe me, they did it in a very, very successful way. And I'll give you a little quote from there. And in fact, all agri-commodities that were traded between the period of 42 and 52, there was a 115% increase in the cash flow to farms in America. This was the golden period of American agriculture. I do not agree that by having a straight up law, you can implement it. There are many laws in India that are not implemented. But how can the government do this? The government can do this by issuing non-recourse loans at 90% of the value of the produce of the farmers. The government is already trying to build up warehousing capacities. The government is already trying to have more grain go downs and decentralized grain storage. Why can't the government develop a mechanism which has already been, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we just have to adapt it. We have to take the New Deal Farm Program and adapt it for India. That time in America too, there were about 50% of all American population was engaged in agriculture. And mainly these were family farms, which could be equated with the family farms and small holdings in India. So why can't we have a sound economics instead of vilifying the farmers or instead of vilifying the government? Let's actually think economically and look at good agrarian programs that have worked around the world. So this farmer agitation that's happening, I do believe that there is a serious agrarian distress. I do not agree with the way it is being dealt with, but I do agree that there is a sound economic program that can be implemented that will help the farmers. There's other issue of food inflation. Well, economically, if you study prices and price stability, this will not be a problem because the cream is not being taken by the consumer or the farmer in this scenario. It's actually excesses in the middle. And if we have a good supply management program with quotas for the farmers and a certain quota of the number of grain or tonnage that can be bought by the government in cooperation with the farmer, we can have a stable market. We can at least attempt to do that. I'm not saying everything will be perfect, but attacking other people, politicizing the issue and not thinking economically and agriculturally will lead to a bigger disaster. India is already battling with food insecurities. My first panelist said that there are 800 million people who depend on Indian food ration systems. So we need our farmers in the future also. If the weather goes bad this year again, we will have a bad wheat harvest and hyperinflation in election year could increase again. So be very, very careful. Let's not attack anybody. Let's think soundly. Let's think of solutions. Thank you.
All right, let me get in Dr. M.J. Khan at that point. Dr. M.J. Khan, come in here on, Dr. Khan, can you hear me? Okay, I think we've lost his connection there. Okay, before I go back to Jayjeet, Sharad Kohli, why don't you respond to some of the points that Indrashekhar Singh has raised?
Well, as far as, his point relating to, we should not think of moving the family members of the farmers to other professions. I think he must be aware that, today the most common phrase spoken in a farmer's family is, I say it in Hindi because most of the farmers, especially in the Hindi heartland in the northern India, where the issue is right now coming up, they say, बेटा हमने तो मिट्टी में अपने जीवन बिता दिया, बेकार कर दिया, तू जा शहर में जाके और अपना करियर बना, अपनी जिंदगी जी ले जाके. So that is the most popular dialogue because the farmers actually do not want their children to be going through the same grind because they know that this is not a profit making occupation. And regarding his points relating to, I do agree with what he's saying. There is an agrarian policy needed, but we in India right now, we are in stage 1. What he's suggesting is stage 2. He was citing examples of America and other countries. I agree, they have done that. But in India, we have to address the problems at the root now. Now, what has this government done in the 10 years without taking support of the government or anything? A PM Kisan putting direct money. I mean, nothing better could have been done. You just land money straight away into their bank account. They can at least buy seeds if they have shortfall in their household budgets. They can use that money whatever way they want. There was no compulsory usage of that money. Fertilizer subsidies came in. PM Kisan Nidhi came in. Cold storage, the infrastructure with regard to agriculture was built. E-marketing was started. The GEM was started. Connecting the mandis was done. So I think all that was possible in stage 1 has been done. I would still like to reiterate, the point which I said. It is not about revenue. Even if we give them the MSP, I can tell you with conviction as an economist, and I'm a chartered accountant as well, that the cost of production will rise and will catch up soon. And ultimately, what is in their bank or what is landing in their hands will ultimately be the same. So raising the price is not the issue. It is about solving the other problems which hit agriculture today. And I think the government, if this was a government, with a very simple point, if this was a government which was against the farmers, I would have bought these arguments. If this was a government which had ignored farmers, I would have bought the argument. If this was a government in whose budget there was no allocation for agriculture, I would have bought this argument. Fortunately,
okay.
all the
Jayjit Bhattacharya,
issues...
what about technology? How can we use technology? I'm running out of time, so I need to quickly get in Jayjit. Yes, Indrashekar, okay, 30 seconds response, and then Jayjit Bhattacharya will come.
First of all, sir, this is the government that has had the biggest farmer movement in the whole world ever happened against it. So keep that in mind. Second, that what is happening in India is completely comparable to the US. I'm talking about the period between 1920 and 1950. If you look at the direct bank transfer, that policy has also been taken from the US. Other agrarian policies, including MSP, has been taken from the US and adopted in India. The APMC mandis are also taken from the US. If you study deeply the economic and agrarian connections between India and America, you will find that we are following their playbook. And the thing is that, of course, we are at a different level of economic development and agrarian development, but there are links and equivalents that we can find in the US history and modern times India today. So I think it's incorrect to say that there is a big difference. We are automatically just look at any government policy that's existed from after the Green Revolution has been inspired by the US government, USDA, and USAID, and also made by their money. So at the base of everything, we should, I think,
Okay, Jayjit Bhattacharya, quickly, how can tech help? How can technology help in alleviating the situation of farmers and helping them boost their productivity?
I think what Dr. Sharath Kohli had just suggested is actually playing out. So that's a great suggestion, which is in terms of startups getting involved right from the point of actually giving funding to using multiple technologies to monitor the farm growth, and including crop insurance, using technologies such as drones to make sure that there is precision pesticide being given so that their cost of payout reduces. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, including the government, because their crop insurance payout also reduces if they're able to target in terms of technology. But I also want to bring in the point that, although we are saying US and India are similar and India has been following the US page and US has been quite helpful.
Yes.
But like the New Deal was significantly different in terms of what it was trying to solve. It was trying to solve the issue of overproduction. And therefore that $1.1 billion subsidy that was more to get land out from production of agriculture. So about 30 million hectares was taken out.
All right, I believe Dr. M.J. Khan has also finally joined us. Let's quickly get in a word from him, because I need to then go across to some more breaking news. Dr. Khan, I don't have much time left, unfortunately, but your roadmap for farmers on how to increase their income and how to double their income.
I think government is already doing a number of initiatives. So we are on the track, but exact estimation either was done in 2016, not recently. So whether we have crossed already the doubling farmers' income that was promised by 2022, but that is not so much relevant and connected at the moment as far as the agitations are concerned. That is entirely different agenda. So doubling farmers' income, I believe that post-harvest losses need to be reduced. That helps. Value addition has to be increased. That increases. MSP is being increased, so that adds to that. So number of measures that are being taken and can be taken, so that all together are helping increase the farmers' income. So whether your point is only about doubling farmers' income or this relates to the current agitation.
My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.